Good morning, everyone. And it's a pleasure to welcome Jeremy back to KC, your home, along with your wife, Laura.
Yes.
And we're happy to see you. We were very thrilled when we heard that you requested to visit Kingston College, and it's a pleasure for us to have you. And I'm sure that when you walk around, you will have many memories of your days here. It's good to have you, and it's good to have you in Jamaica. And I understand you're here for a very worthy cause, the Michael Manley Centenary Lecture. We have followed your progress to some extent in the British politics, and it has been interesting and colourful, if I may say. But it is, as I said, good to have you here.
I think I need you doing public relations for me.
Without further ado, I'm going to ask the principal to just say a few words before we ask you to speak and remind us of your days here.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Mr. Corbyn, it's certainly my pleasure meeting you, sir. As Chairman said, we'll follow your progress. I'm not going to say it's colourful or interesting, but we'll follow your progress. And I know we'd reached out to you before, some while back. We were trying to get to your office. We wanted you here before, but here you are today, and we're happy for that. We share a little thing in common because I was born in Shropshire, back out there in the Midlands. Yes, Telford, Wellington, hometown. Yeah. In fact, In fact, I was born in Broseley. Broseley. Yeah, there's a cottage hospital in Broseley years ago. I'm not sure if it's still there now. But yes, but here I am in Jamaica.
Let's go back there together and check it out.
We should do that. Yeah, it should be great. You know, one interesting thing I'd love to find out from you. What was it like during your time here in Jamaica in Kingston College?
Well, it was, I suspect, very different to now. But coming into the college this morning, it's much smarter, well painted and well presented. It wasn't quite like that in 1967 when I came here. I remember coming in those gates like in 3 days after I'd arrived in Jamaica. When we arrived, we were volunteers. We were all taken to UWI and given some very interesting lectures. The most stimulating to me was actually Rex Nettlefold, the Jamaican National Dance Theatre Company. I was absolutely fascinated by the lecture he gave. It was about the history of music, of dance in Jamaica, the African roots of it, the European influence. Absolutely fascinating. What a wonderful guy. And then after that, we then were assigned to the schools we were going to. And I came here and I met Douglas Forrest and John Burrows, who was the vice principal at that time. And then we sort of went to walk around the school. And down the playing fields over there was a sort of area around the edge of the pitch where the grass can't grow. So I said to Mr. Forrest, I said, what's this about? Why is this path like here? He says, well, John Burrows comes here at 5:30 every morning and runs 10 times round the track, goes home and changes and comes in to teach. And he does it every single day. And he said, we can't stop him and we can't get the grass to grow. And then we had a sort of walk around the school, and then they gave me my timetable. And I said, wow. And it was full on. And they said, oh, you're teaching geography to 3rd and 4th form students. I said, okay. So what's the geography you're teaching? And they said, well, 3rd form you teach world geography. I said, that's all right. And 4th form you teach Caribbean geography. I said, okay. And they gave me the course book. I said, okay. Fine, thanks. So we then had a lovely walk around the building. I loved the staff room, which is the staff building, the old Italian style house. That was beautiful. And then, so they said, we'll see you in the morning then. We start at 8. It's okay, all right, I'll be here. So I then go back to the lodgings I was staying in with Mr. Clark in Mona. His son had been here and tragically died of a swimming accident in Cambridge on the day he graduated. Edward Clark. And his mum and dad never ever got over it, understandably. And so on the way back, I went to Sangster's bookshop on Hope Road. Bought every geography book I could find. Get back to the house, and Mr. Clark said, "Shall we have dinner and then we'll have a chat?" I said, "Quick dinner, leave me." So I go to my room and I got all these geography books. I was studying till 1 o'clock in the morning, all this stuff, and then come in the next morning ready to teach. And I mean, it was. I was thrown in at the deep end, which is both good and bad. It's unfair on the children, but good to me, because it made me face up to the responsibility. I was only 18. Yeah, I was only 18. I was very young. Yeah. You're shocked, aren't you? So was I. So I'm only a few years older than these kids I'm teaching, you see. So getting them to, concentrate and behave was not always easy. And you see where we're sitting now, we look up there, that beautiful view of the mountains. I'd be in the class here. You've got these kids giving it out big time, being a real problem. And I'd look up to those mountains and say, yeah, those mountains are beautiful. Now, class, look at the mountains. And what I learned was the joy of teaching and the joy of interaction with students of very, very different ability level. It was very much mixed ability teaching. But also what I really figured was we're only in school for what? At the most 12 years of our lives, at the most maybe 13, 14, 17 if you include university, I suppose. And we all hope to live to a good age. So in reality, what you do is teaching people to want to learn, teaching people to teach themselves, teaching people to have inquiring minds. And I loved it. But some of it was practical difficulties. Teaching geography, I want to teach them about mapping and scale and things, and they just didn't get it. They didn't get it. So I'd give them a map of Russia, and they'd say, okay. And I said, here's a map of Jamaica. Russia's bigger than Jamaica. They said, yeah, okay. How much bigger? So we tried to work it out. They didn't get it at all. They couldn't get the proportionate stuff. They just couldn't get it at all. So I thought, I'm just not getting through to them here. So I said, okay, let's do it differently. So we then got a lot of tape measures and got some paper. And I said, okay, divide up into groups of 6 and go out. And you measure the playing fields, you measure the area in front of the school, you measure the part of that side, you measure it. So each one was given a particular area of the school to measure it and draw a map of it. And then, of course, they had to then understand what the scale meant. I said, it's got to be. I said, look, if you do it 1-to-1, the paper you've got is going to have to be as big as the playground. So if you do 2-to-1, it's half the size of the playground. You do 4-to-1, it's a quarter. So they and after that, they got it because they'd done it themselves. And that's what was so nice about it. So I loved it. And then when we started talking about where things come from, what I would do is get one very ordinary item, maybe take that chair, put it in front and say, okay, what's the chair made of? Wood. Okay, where's the wood come from? Oh, yeah, okay. Now it's got steel screws in it. Where do they come from? So work out. So then put this on a world map and say, this is how things are interdependent. So I loved it, actually. And I was very pleased at the end of year 3, when after that geography was a choice or wasn't a compulsory subject anymore, 2/3 of them chose to carry on studying geography. So I felt really pleased about that. So I loved it. And I was very involved in school life. We're doing Duke of Edinburgh's award, and I took lots of groups of boys up to Blue Mountain Peak. I went 7 times up Blue Mountain Peak. I could go, by the end of it, I could go there blindfold. And it was the most beautiful experience. that last bit, very early in the morning, when you reach Blue Mountain Peak at the top, reach it just as the sun's coming up, and you can pick up a stone and there's ice under it, just for an hour or two, you know. And it was absolutely beautiful. So I had very fond and very happy memories of it. Some of it was a nightmare because I'm very young, the kids are very energetic and very demanding at times and quite difficult sometimes. But they're also in a strange way very caring. And I'll tell you one short story if I may. Is that okay? Because I'm going to repeat it again tonight when I speak at UWI. In April of 1968, Enoch Powell in England made that horrible, disgusting speech about the rivers of blood. It was the most disgusting thing possible. And people had heard about it in Jamaica, obviously, and were very angry about it. So I go out of school to go home, walk out the gates, walk down there, went to the bus stop, and I'm sitting at the bus stop just waiting for the bus. And then this group of 4 or 5 boys come up to me, and they said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "What's it look like? I'm waiting for the bus." And they'd been a complete nightmare all day, this group. And they were very lucky I didn't put all of them in detention, because basically they deserved it. Anyway, so I looked at them and said, "Well, what do you want?" They said, "Sir, we've come here to help you." Why? And they said, "Look, there's going to be trouble tonight because people are so angry about Mr. Powell. We'll take you home." They came on the bus with me to home. And then they went to see my landlady and said, "Make sure nobody comes and look after him."
Wow.
I thought, wow.
Wow.
They were terrible students. But they were so... I really... I thought, looking...
That chokes you up.
Totally choked me up. Because they knew what my views on Enoch Powell were and all that. You know, they weren't blaming me for Enoch Powell. But, wow. And I really rated that sense of solidarity.
I tell you one thing, listening to that is that you connected with those students. As terrible as they were, you connected with them. If you didn't, they wouldn't be doing that. Yeah, and so you really connected with them. I'd like to know as well, though, outside of KC, outside of school, what are the experiences you had in Jamaica?
Well, just finish on KC. 2 things I did was I played football for the staff side. Yeah, I wasn't very good, but I played. I did a lot of running, and these kids were sitting by the thing as I ran there. They said, "These boys once said, it seemed I could run quite fast. See them white legs go." And so we played for the staff side, which was great, and. Then the parents' evenings, I mean, you know, parents would come in and parents always assume you know who their child is. You don't. You know the child, sure. And you don't, they said, "Oh, how's he getting on?" And so one of them sort of said, "How's he getting on?" I said, "Oh, I wasn't totally sure which boy she was talking about." I said, "Oh, he's all right." And then she gave me his name, and I said, "Yeah, he's not too bad." She said, "How's he behaving in class?" I said, "Oh, he's fairly all right." She said, "No, that can't be true. He's terrible at home." And then outside of school, I was very involved with the school because we did quite a lot of after-school activities and things, including these hiking trips, which were wonderful to do because you see the boys in a completely different light. And those that are good academically are not necessarily good at camping and outdoor activities. It's different. And so what I love, and I still do, I've done this for a long time with a group called Woodcraft in England, that the boys that are less academically good sometimes are really good at outdoor activities, and then their esteem rises amongst all of the class, and so it's a great leveler, and I love doing it. So taking them up Blue Mountain Peak, and one time I went up with Mr. Desai, who taught here as well, and then I don't know, he must have twisted his ankle or something, so we ended up hiring a donkey to bring Mr. Desai back. So I'm walking down Blue Mountain with the guy who owned the donkey and Mr. Desai on it. It took hours and hours, and the donkey was in a bad mood. And so we get into this was on a Sunday. So we go in the staff room Monday morning, and most of the teachers knew we'd been on this trip together, a few of us. And they said, how'd it go? Mr. Desai comes in with a stick. I said, that Blue Mountain's treacherous. So he was a lovely guy, and I obviously knew all the other teachers very well, Miss Tingling, Maurice, and so on. All the teachers I knew quite well. Some of them you would have been familiar with. And then the other things I did outside was I volunteered to help at the Mona Rehabilitation Centre, Polio Rehabilitation Centre, and that again taught me a lot about how people with disabilities are always underestimated about what they can do. And then we had a summer camp in near Ocho Rios. There was some, I think they must have been quite wealthy Americans, gave us the use of a private beach for the polio children, which was nice of them. So we went there, we had this camp, it must have lasted, I suppose, a week or something like that. And I was a bit nervous about these kids who'd all got quite profound disabilities, how safe they would be. And one of the others was far more experienced than me, so we'll take them all swimming today. And I said, are you sure about this? Said, yeah, it'll be fine. So this girl, she would have been about 10, I suppose, 10, 11 perhaps, something like that, who only had one arm and had quite profound, no hands and part of an arm, but she had the other arm was normal. And so they said, no, we're taking her swimming. And she couldn't walk properly or anything. So they said, look, if you just lift her out the wheelchair and carry her into the water, she'll swim. I said, are you really sure about it? I was really worried for her, you know. So I picked her up and carried her in my arms into the water, strode out into the water and came up to here. And then she said, will you let me go now? So I kind of lowered her into the water, still holding her. What's going to happen here? So I didn't want to let go of her. And then she just... She was gone. She was wonderful. And then when she'd done her swimming, we then carried her back in. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. You then realise the spirit and determination she had to achieve that. And the other place I did quite a lot with was Theatre 77 at the Barn. Trevor Rohn and Yvonne Jones, both of whom taught here. I think they were part-time, weren't they? Trevor and Yvonne taught here. I think he taught English and theatre, and she would have probably done the same thing, I would imagine. And they were good friends. And so they said, would I come and help at the Barn? So I said, okay, whatever. So we had the Theatre of 77 was at the Barn. The Barn was like their garage at the back of her mum and dad's house. And we had a outdoor seating arrangement looking into it. And then we did various plays. And then one of them was very, very successful because 1968 was the year of human rights. So we had this play called I'm Human, Right? And it was full of humour, very, very witty, actually. It was written by Trevor, Yvonne, and Munir, I think, wrote some of it. Yeah, Munir wrote some of it, yeah. And my job was the lighting operator and the bartender. So I had to be behind the screens, and I had this dimmer switch. I had to put the lights up or down according to the script, you know. So I'm there following it, thinking, yeah. And then one time, there's a point where Munir's playing there, and he's supposed to answer the phone, and I have to ring a bell for the phone to be ringing. Then he picks up the phone and starts a conversation. Then one time I just forgot to ring the phone. And he suddenly picks up the phone and starts a conversation. And he gave me some rocket afterwards. Wow. And then I would then go onto the stage and say, right, there's an interval now, and drinks are available at the bar. The only thing that was available was Appleton rum or red stripe beer, nothing else. That was it. So my job was to serve that. So I'd go and serve the beer, and then go back to the lights on. And it ran for months and months, this thing. So it was. We did it, I think, 3 evenings a week for about. I think it lasted 6 months, and it was full every night. And Michael Manley came one night. Norman Manley had been there. Everybody was there because it got buzz going. What was nice about it was that it was very successful. Obviously, I think I'm right in saying it was the first very successful Jamaican-written, Jamaican-inspired play, rather than a reproduction of a European or American play. And that was what was. It was fun. It was great. So I really enjoyed it. And then one night, Gary Sobers came. He'd been at the test match here, and he came. So I met this hand, shook the hand of Gary Sobers. This hand shook the hand of Gary Sobers. So,
You know, I'm going to shake your hand.
yeah. Now you and I. We've got his hand. Shook the hand of Gary Sobers. This hand shook the hand that shook the hand of Gary Sobers. So. Wonderful, happy memories. And what I loved doing was reading all the stuff and history. Oh, thank you. Reading history of Jamaica, and this was the other thing that happened during the year was Walter Rodney had been at the Black Writers Conference in New York, and Montreal, sorry, and he was on his way back to Guyana and came through Jamaica to go on to Guyana, and he was due to give a lecture at UWI, and the government decided to ban him. It was completely ludicrous. They said, we don't want him speaking here because he'd been at this Black Writers Conference and he was giving what was actually a quite brilliant interpretation of history. I've still got his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Fantastic work. So they banned him and the whole place erupted. Demonstrations, the lot, everything. And I just, so you kind of remember these things as the year went on. So I had a phenomenal time here, and Jamaica changed my life and changed my attitudes and approach, and gave me a love of African and Caribbean poetry and literature, and trying to have some kind of understanding of it. And it's my pride and pleasure now to represent a constituency with a lot of people from Jamaica.
Yeah. You had a full life here.
A very full life.
How long were you?
Yeah, about 18 months. But it was very formative years. I didn't go to university when I left school, and then despite the best efforts of my mother, I didn't go to university when I got back either. So I'm not a good example I'm not a good example at all, because basically I'm self-taught.
Yeah. You're a good example, actually.
Well, I don't know about that. There you go. Others can decide that. But I want to say thank you to Kingston College for the opportunity they gave me, and the problems, the passion and the joy of being here. And KC won the Manning Cup that year.
Wow.
There you go.
I hope that's Omen as well, because
Where are you? How are you doing this year?
We're in the semi-finals.
You're in the semi-final.
Today we play semi-finals.
All the best to KC in the Manning Cup. I remember the first match we went to, they weren't playing that well, but they still beat Camperdown 7-1. Yeah!
It's a big one.
Yeah. So who are you playing tonight?
We're playing Heidel.
Okay.
They're kind of newish school. They've been around a couple of years. They were initially a private institution. Now I think government has come in and they're part funding them. So they're part of the whole.
And we're going to win it.
Well, we better.
You're going to be there instructing.
I've told the coach. He has
no choice.
failed to win, don't come back.
No school for you.
You have a fantastic memory.
Yes.
To have the details that you have recounted is really amazing. And those 18 months, what you have said so far sounded like 3 or 4 years.
Well, I was very involved, and I've always been a sort of quite motivated person. So I got involved in school debate and society and just about everything because it was I thought I've been given this, to me, incredible opportunity, which maybe I don't deserve, but I'm here. I'll give it my all. So I did. And that's what you should always do with that with life. Whatever opportunity comes along, give it your all. Because it might not come back.
Well, you know that I don't know if Dr. Dowser told you that next year Casey will be 100 years old, so we'll be celebrating our centenary next year April, I'm stepping out and offering an invite for you to come back here for our centenary next year. It would be lovely to have you as our guests for the centenary. Because we also count you as one of our celebrated past member of staff at Kingston College here.
Well, I was listed in the staff thing as most of the staff, not all, had degrees. Not all, most did. And they always put them up there. And I was put down as GCE Advanced, brackets Cambridge. It was deliberately slightly misleading because it was the Cambridge board that did the GCSE. So the uninitiated looked, oh, Mr. Corbyn's a Cambridge graduate. GCE Advanced, Cantab. Douglas Forrest was a very innovative head. Yeah. I really liked him. I thought he was.
I've heard so much about Doug Forrest.
He was so totally dedicated to the school. It was his complete life. I can't imagine how he would ever have retired. We all thought he lived here anyway.
Have you kept in touch with anyone that you used to?
Not really. Occasionally we get exchanged letters with people. And I wished emails had come in much earlier. We'd have been much better in touch, and so I sort of regret that because I wished I had. But I do come across people, and somebody who's a former student contacted my son last week to say, "I heard your dad's going to Kingston next week. I'm going to go and look out for him, and I think he might turn up at UWI tonight." Okay. I don't know who it is exactly, but my son, who runs a small shop in my area, said he'd been in to see him. Okay. So, yeah, the tentacles of KC go a long way, as you know. Right. But I think this Shropshire link-up is amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely amazing.
So what we should do is read that poem, shouldn't we? A.E. Houseman, a Shropshire lad.
That's right. That's right.
And they called me a Shropshire lad when I was here. Yeah, they said they called me lots of things, but some of which weren't very kind. But, you know, they also, when I left, they gave me a book which I've still got on the geography of the Caribbean, the history of the Caribbean. Beautiful book. Douglas Forrest gave it to me and wrote in it to the Shropshire lad.
You know, I could sit and listen to you for the whole day telling you.
I'm sure you've got better things to do. So what's the school like now?
It's some of the things are the same because the class sizes, you had large class sizes then. We still have that 45 kids to a class. It's massive. And we've gone even higher than 45 before. And so they're still full of energy, these kids. You know, a handful. And bearing in mind now that the population of the school is roughly near 2,000 students, which is it's a massive population. And, you know, we also have a major issue going on now, which is our teacher shortage. A lot of our teachers have either gone to the US to work or they've gone to England to work. And so we have, I call it nearly a brain drain. Just last week gone, a teacher came to me on Wednesday to tell me that she's leaving on Friday because she's supposed to take up a teaching position, believe it or not, in the Midlands as well, Derby. And
very short notice.
Very short notice. And no, very, very short notice. And over the last year to now, we've lost roughly maybe about 30 odd staff, 32 who have gone either to the States or England. The problem with that is the persons who you get to replace are nowhere as experienced. You're getting teachers coming right out of Teachers College, the early craft. So and then the other thing is that you're losing your sciences, your physics, your chemistry, your biology, and even your English teachers, well, maths as well. And those are really fundamental within the system. So it's pretty difficult, because even as I'm talking now, I have at least about 3 to 4 vacancies that we're accounting for people who have left and gone. So it's a big thing, because again, as far as parents are concerned, that's not their concern about you not having teachers. My child's coming to school; he needs to be taught, and so you grapple with that every day. So some things are the same. I would argue even now that the plant, I need more classrooms based on the number of kids. I need more space, but again. You ask yourself, why complain? You just kind of work with what you've got and do the best that you can within the context of what you have. But one thing is certain, they're great kids. That's always, no matter, you have a couple who may be problematic, but overall they're a great bunch of kids. Yesterday I was in the room here meeting with all our the leaders and presidents of the clubs and societies in the school. We had over 32 clubs and societies, and I was talking to these boys yesterday. When I finished, I shook my head and said to them, gentlemen, I'm just so proud of all of you, because there's so many leaders here. Yeah, kids who, they're coming up with all sorts of ideas about what we can do, what we need to be doing, how we need to be going forward. And I'm saying, I just love that. I love the energy of these kids. And here's the thing. Many of these kids are coming from backgrounds that are not great, but you can see where their trajectory is going. They're pushing hard. And so that push drives you on.
Some of them, their family were very, very, very poor.
Yes.
Very poor.
I used to say,
You have to be very careful how you spoke to them about, like, what do you do at the weekend, what do you do during the holiday, and stuff like that. Some kids were from fairly comfortably off families, others were just very, very poor.
Yeah.
So you have to be very cautious how you spoke.
You have to. In fact, we have over 300 of our students on this program of poverty alleviation through scholarship path. Yeah, and we're the government provides some level of funding to provide lunches for them every day. We have to bolster that or find an additional funds to make sure they have a lunch each day. That's the only way they're going to stay in school. Our All Boys Network provide millions of dollars in scholarships just to keep kids in school as well. And it's interesting. Like the last intake we had, I was in the chapel talking to them, and I asked, let me see the hands of all of those students who are from primary schools as against preparatory schools. I'd say 95% of the intake were coming from normal primary schools across the island, and that tells a tale in itself. All right. You ask how many of your kids drive into school. The vast majority are there. The parents came off the buses and walked into school. But at the end of the day, in spite of that, these are some great kids. And when you look at what they do, and even yesterday I had to marvel at it, because many of these kids, I'm watching them at first one, they're hardly as tall as a table. And now they're young men in their own rights, and you have to talk to them in a different kind of way. And I'm saying, the development and the movement is just unbelievable. And every time for me that I get down or despondent about this job, I go and look at those kids, and then I know why I do what I do. Because at the end of the day, when a kid comes back and says, boy, sir, thanks for Casey, because if it weren't for Casey, I wouldn't have been wherever. That's what drives you.
That's the achievement. That's what's so good about it.
Yeah, that's what drives you.
Well done, you. And so, what did most of your students go on to do?
It ranges. Nearly every profession you can think of. You go from police force, medicine, lawyer, actuaries. It ranges right across the board. And in fact, many of them will go overseas on scholarships as well. They're off in the States. Generally, once they go, they hardly ever come back. That's where they end up staying. But they go right across the board in terms of profession. They used to be in love with the legal profession for a lot of medicine. That a lot of them want to aim towards that. Some go in teaching, a lot of them go in business as well. And I even have some aspiring for politics too. Yeah. And so I think, well, I have at least 2 or 3 of them already working with the political arena. And, you know, I just see these boys, they're going to be big time politicians down the road. That's their level.
Her father was an MP
Okay.
Belafonte.
Yeah.
So that was it. Yeah. Okay. So she told me. She used to lend me her car to get books and papers and things. She was very generous. I never really crashed it.
So, what sort of Jamaican foods were you into when you were here?
All of it. Particularly ackee saltfish. I thought was amazing. I loved that. And what I loved was the variety of food you get. You get pawpaw, you get yams, all the vegetables and things that I'd never heard of. Remember, I was coming from England, which in the I grew up in the 50s and 60s when the idea of vegetables was to put them in boiling water and make sure they lost all colour totally. So you just appeared with some sort of insipid mash, which was called cabbage. It was absolutely appalling. And the food here to me was absolutely fantastic, and because of the freshness and the variety of it. And so, but actually, Jamaican influence on food in Britain has been absolutely huge. I mean, Jamaican food is now everywhere, and it's normal, and people eat patties. You get ackee, you get saltfish, you get all the fresh fruits and jerk food and so on. It's all changed. And what's amazing is Jamaica's enormous influence all over the world. I mean, it's not a very big island, but there's nobody on the planet that hasn't heard of Jamaica and doesn't know about Jamaica. It's partly Mali, it's partly music, it's partly sport, it's partly Usain Bolt. It's all of those things.
That's true. Yeah.
So you've had some great athletes from here as well, haven't you?
We have. In fact, at the World Championships in Budapest last year, 9 of the athletes out there came from Kingston College. And yet they're representing various countries. Zana Hughes came to KC, who represents England, UK. We had one from St. Lucia, and Turks. No, all the others came from Jamaica, which is. I think it's the only school that has ever had that number of athletes out there representing their country. And we're proud of that in terms of our kids, because if you think of the intake where they come from and what we do with those kids to send them out, we're very proud of those boys. Yeah. That's the big thing.
I mean, sport is great to motivate, and it's also a great equaliser.
Definitely. If I'd known you're into ackee and saltfish, I'd have had some of that ready for you today. Make sure you have a good dish. We had some yesterday. We had a meeting here and had some yesterday.
We had it all yesterday.
Yeah, we had it all
We had
yesterday.
the most fantastic callaloo this morning at breakfast.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
I'm okay. I love the callaloo, I'm all right.
You know, I'm really hoping you'll come to the event next year, and your wife and yourself would be welcome to have you.
Lara is enjoying your time in Jamaica, yeah?
Yes.
First time?
Yeah.
Yes.
She's got a family not so far away. They live in Merida in Mexico. It's just a short boat ride. Yeah, when we were here in '68 was, of course, the year of the Olympics, and the student body was very taken by the Olympics, but the staff body they were in Mexico for that year, as you remember, and the staff body were more taken by the appalling attack on the students in Mexico at the time.
Yeah.
And how many were killed?
We don't know the stat. They say like 1,000, but it was much more than that.
It was
We never knew.
massive. And the staff very taken that, and also that was, of course, the year of big events in the USA when Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy were both assassinated. And I remember the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated, we had a silence in the school. Mr. Forrest spoke about his life.
You know,
Poignant time.
yeah. You know, one of the things we lament now, Madam of my vice principals, you get the sense that teachers of yesteryear were much more committed than now. Now, many see it as a kind of transitional stage. You know, I'm doing year to year, then I'm gone off to wherever. And you know, I think teaching back then was nearly seen as a calling for some persons. Now, it's one of those things that you do. And the thing about it, even when I think about those kids coming out there to take care, say we're there to take care of you, is because you connected with them. Even if you didn't know you connected with them. That's why they did it. You know, because kids sense genuineness when it's there, and they know fake when it's fake as well.
Yeah, that's right. They know it, and they know the commitment. Otherwise,
that's right.
My mum was a teacher.
That's right.
So I got that from her. She would never give up on a student,
No.
however
No.
difficult.
That's
She would never give up.
Yeah.
And the kids know that.
Exactly.
They know that.
And they respond to it. They know to respond to it. So, you know, but then again, I suppose they say the world moves on. We have to do what we have to do, but it's much more difficult now, I would say, than earlier years.
But I really admire your teachers in classes of 45.
Yeah. A lot.
And if it's mixed ability teaching, which
It is mixed ability,
inevitably it is,
Yeah.
then you've got to have a huge skill set to accommodate the differing progress speeds of 45 kids.
It is difficult. I won't ever take that away. It's very difficult. And teachers, we talk about it all the time. And some teachers adapt it better than others. And particularly when you have a very young teacher coming out of college and then thrown in a room with 45 boys, full of energy.
But you're going to love this. We've got, in my constituency, we've got some primary schools where the numbers have fallen dramatically because of housing problems and people moving out of London and all that. So we've got some classes in those schools with 10 to 15 children in. So those kids, they've got a teacher and a teaching assistant for 15 of them. They're doing brilliantly. I mean, this is better than any private education ever get anywhere. And I know there's a financial problem, obviously, with that small number of kids, but for this year or two, those kids are just thriving.
Yes.
And you just wish all kids could get that. Yes. And these are mostly, in that school, they're mostly Somali children who come from quite large, often quite poor families. They're doing brilliantly. So there's a kind of, just take advantage of the situation and use it.
It's a difficult one because...
Do you end up teaching another class yourself?
I wish I could. I spend most of my times in meetings, seeking funding for the school, working with the Ministry of Education to get things done, which is just crazy, to be honest with you. You know, I try and get time to go and sit and talk to the kids. You know, sometimes I'll take a year group, maybe 200, 300 and all of them in the chapel, and just talk to them and say, come guys, sit down and have a rap session for an hour or two. And it's just good talking to these kids, you know, because... Oh, yeah. You know, these boys are boys, if they have inspectors from the ministry coming in, they'd want to be telling that inspector who they should fire the teacher at the corner. How blunt they are. They'll say to a teacher, sir, you know, maybe it's time to go to the hairdresser or something like that. They're cheeky. They're very cheeky, but
we have this school inspection system with Ofsted.
Yeah.
They came to my kids' primary school and they were all there. And the inspectors would have one evening with all the parents. Now this is a really good primary school. As far as I could see, there was no deficiencies or problems there at all. And so we're sitting in the school hall and the parents are all trying to think of something to complain about. Like the door wasn't properly closed last Thursday afternoon or something. And then I as the local MP thought, well, it's not a good idea if I say anything, I'll just quietly sit. So I got really bored by all this stuff. So I got my notebook out, tried to go around all these sort of, started writing in what I've got to do next week and all this kind of thing. And then at the end of it, I go up to the inspector and he looks at me and I just said, I thought you handled that really well. Because by the way, these parents giving you a hard time for no reason and they're ultra picky. This is actually a very good school. He said, so he looks at me and he shook me by the hand. I said, oh, well done, thanks. He said, I thought you'd been sent to inspect the inspectors. You were writing a description.
Thank you so much for being here and for sharing with us as well. It's an absolute pleasure for us. And again, I echo. I look forward to seeing you next year, you and your lovely wife, for the centenary function. We hope we'll send you the official invite for you to be there. But thank you again.
With the teacher shortage, because Laura's from Mexico.
In fact,
and she's got a master's degree in international law and human rights. Obviously Spanish speaking, great knowledge of history of Mexico. I'm sure you can use her skills.
I could definitely do that. We do law, and we also need Spanish teachers. So I prepare to allow her to stay.
And I've picked up a bit here and there. I've never studied anything, but I read a lot, and I approach life with the idea every single person I meet, everybody knows something I don't know. And I want to know what it is. So you have that approach to
the
others.
inquiring mind. Yeah. There's a lot you could teach us. So I'll be happy to have you back here. In fact, maybe what we'll do is when you come for the centenary, I'll ask you to do a couple guest lectures for us with our students while you're here. So that's something to think about. Yeah, both in law and other. Of course you can. Yeah.
And you need to make one more trip up to Blue Mountain.
Yeah. It'd be my 8th one.
There you go.
That's right.
Am I fit enough to do it, you think?
You can.
Hungry out grumpy donkey.
Yeah, that donkey. I think we have a little something here for you.
Thank you.
Let me say thanks. Thanks to
Wait a minute, guys. No, we're not quite finished.
I want to say thanks to Mr. Corbyn for his presentation, which was very enlightening, and we appreciate it very much. What you just said is something that I'm sure when our students see that, will be impressed and inspired by your experience. It's very encouraging, and we do hope, and I echo the headmaster's invitation, that you will come back in April, and we will have the ackee and saltfish then.
I love literature and poetry, and I read a lot of poetry and write a little bit myself, because I think poets tell truths and are not confined by one academic discipline or anything else. And so my friend Len McCluskey, who used to be the General Secretary of Unite, the biggest union in Britain, both discovered during a long discussion about economic policy, where we more or less agreed, when I was leader of the opposition, and he looked at my bookcase in my office and he said, "Jeremy, what's with all these poetry books?" I said, "Well, are you complaining?" He said, No, I'm just impressed. Why have you got them? I said, "Well, I love poetry." It turns out he did as well. And so we put together a collection of poetry called Poetry for the Many, because our election manifesto was for the many, not the few. And we put together this poetry book, and we've taken it on tour around the country and done discussions about poetry and what it means to people. And this book is a collection where we've each written a description of why we like that poem. And there's one poem at the end written by me, which is called Calais in Winter, which is about refugees in Calais in France, from Afghanistan and other places, trying to get to a place of safety. And it's written with empathy. I'd like to present this to go into the school library. So I'll sign it before we go. Now, the other thing is, you remember I told you earlier when I arrived that I've done a bad thing for Kingston College, but I'm going to make it right. when I went, I took my class register with me, which I'm sure I should have handed back to the school. I'm sure it's the property of the school. But don't worry, it's been in safekeeping for the past 50 years. I've looked at it once or twice and remembered, wow, that boy, whoa. And so I'll get you that register back. But what I've got here is something you can use the register. It's labelled House of Commons. It's a register book. So you can take a register.
This will be kept in private place. Yeah. In fact, I'm looking to autograph both.
I'll sign them both.
And we in turn.
Yes. On behalf of the Kingston College class of 1974, we want to present you with a portrait. It was done by one of our classmates, and I'm going to have it presented to you by one of my classmates. And I chose him because, like you, he is doomed. He's a gunner. Morris here.
Thank you.
It's an honor and privilege to have you back with us here at Kingston College. And I know an invitation has been extended to both yourself and your wife to come back for our centenary. We will gladly welcome you. We have deep roots and a lot in common. I heard my headmaster drift off into bloody hell a few times, but that's his heritage. Jeremy, welcome home.
Thank you.
And on behalf of the 69ers,
Do you recognize him?
The beard. Because they called me Beard Man.
looks familiar, doesn't it?
It does look, it's wonderful. It's got the eyes absolutely spot on because one eye is slightly bigger than the other, as you probably know. Isn't that good, Laura?
Yes.
Yes.
This was done by Balford Reed. We are going to present you with a Kingston College old boys tie.
Shall I put it on now? Put it on now.
Downstairs, next floor are all the computer labs, which we recently did because what's happening, apart from teaching IT in the curriculum, CXC, they're moving towards having all exams online as well. So we have to up our IT game in the school. And we're pushing towards having IT as one of the subjects that every student will do. Right now, I think we may have about 70% of the students all students do IT from first one coming up, but in terms of doing the external examination, we have maybe about 60-65% of our students who sit IT, and we're going to be looking to make that maybe compulsory down the road as well. We have to try to move to online within a day or two, and even though we thought the kids were online with us, they weren't. They responded to us and images themselves up there, which we thought they were online. They weren't online, they were doing other stuff. Yeah? And by the time we caught up, they found a new way to actually trick us about being online. As it feels not air conditioned as yet.
Must get a bit hot
that's a problem. Because once you're in here and when you have people packed in, the heat rises and it's pretty difficult. So this is where we should have all our staff meetings and other sorts of meetings, large groups. So hopefully,
and it's got a very low ceiling, which makes it worse because the old teachers' staff room, which is demolished now, is it the old building?
I think over time
it was
there's
in
some
a pretty
fire
bad
and then
state.
whatever, yeah.
But that was a very old, high ceiling. It was actually quite pleasant because the wind would
higher the ceiling, yeah. And one of the things with the pictures is just to teach show them the history in pictorial form as well.
writing one every year.
Telegram. I love it.
Yeah,
Telegram. Telegram. Congratulations.